The first time Marcus Hill thought his life was over, it wasn't because of the accident that had taken his wife 3 years earlier. It wasn't because he had spent countless nights wondering how he would raise his 6-year-old daughter alone while working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. It wasn't even because he had endured years of quiet judgment from people who assumed a black single father couldn't possibly be doing his best. No, the moment that truly shattered his world came on an ordinary rainy Thursday morning, when he walked into the office after doing what he believed was the kindest thing he had ever done, only to discover that one simple act of compassion had become the biggest nightmare of his life. Before we begin this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that remind us how one decision can change a life forever. Marcus had built his life on one simple belief. Even when the world treated you unfairly, you never stopped being kind. That lesson had come from his late mother, who had worked as a hospital cleaner for nearly 30 years. She always told him that kindness was the only wealth nobody could steal. Those words stayed with him long after she passed away, and they became the foundation of every decision he made. Each morning before sunrise, Marcus prepared breakfast for his daughter Lily, braided her hair the best he could after watching countless online tutorials, packed her lunch with handwritten notes, and dropped her off at school before beginning another exhausting day as an operations supervisor at one of the city's largest marketing companies. The work was demanding, but it paid enough to cover rent, groceries, and Lily's piano lessons. Those lessons were expensive, yet Marcus refused to let his daughter sacrifice her dreams because life had already taken so much from her. His boss, Victoria Reynolds, was everything Marcus was not. She came from wealth, dressed in designer clothes, drove luxury cars, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word impossible. Employees respected her intelligence but feared her temper. She expected perfection, worked impossible hours, and rarely smiled. Most people believed she had no heart at all. Marcus never judged her. He understood that everyone carried burdens invisible to others. Late one Friday evening, the office was almost empty after an exhausting week preparing for an important client presentation. Marcus stayed behind organizing reports while everyone else rushed home. Around 11 o'clock, he noticed Victoria stumbling toward the parking garage. Her expensive heels barely kept her standing, and she was obviously drunk. She dropped her car keys twice before leaning against her vehicle, unable to unlock it. Marcus hesitated. Walking away would have been easier. Getting involved with his boss's personal life could only create problems. But he also knew that letting someone in that condition drive could end in tragedy. Without expecting anything in return, Marcus gently convinced Victoria not to drive. After several confused attempts to argue, she finally gave in. He called a rideshare, but she was too intoxicated to explain where she lived. Her phone battery had died. There were no emergency contacts available, and the building's security staff had already left. Marcus faced an impossible choice. Leave her alone, risking her safety, or bring her somewhere secure until morning. Thinking only of protecting another human being, he took her to his modest apartment. His elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, helped him settle Victoria onto the living room couch while Marcus and Lily stayed in the bedroom with the door closed. Mrs. Jenkins remained there for another hour before returning home, making sure everything remained completely appropriate. Marcus slept very little that night. At sunrise, he quietly prepared coffee and breakfast before leaving for work early with Lily. Victoria was still asleep when Mrs. Jenkins agreed to check on her later that morning. Marcus believed the situation was over. He could not have been more wrong. By 10 o'clock, whispers spread through the office like wildfire. Employees stopped talking whenever Marcus walked past. Several people stared at him with expressions filled with suspicion. Human Resources called him into a meeting. Victoria had arrived at work furious. She had awakened in an unfamiliar apartment with no memory of how she got there. Panic overwhelmed her. Instead of asking questions calmly, she assumed the worst. Someone had told her Marcus brought her home, and suddenly every horrible possibility filled the gaps in her missing memories. Marcus sat frozen as accusations circled the conference room. No one directly called him a criminal, yet every question carried that implication. Why hadn't he contacted someone else? Why had he taken her to his apartment? Why hadn't he stayed somewhere else? Why hadn't he documented everything? His answers sounded weak against growing suspicion. He explained about the dead phone, the rideshare, the neighbor, his daughter sleeping safely in another room, and his only intention being to protect his boss. Few seemed convinced. He was placed on immediate administrative leave while the company investigated. Walking out of the building carrying a cardboard box containing family photos and Lily's handmade Father's Day card felt like the longest walk of Marcus's life. News traveled quickly through the neighborhood. Some parents suddenly stopped allowing their children to play with Lily after school. Others avoided eye contact at the grocery store. Marcus could endure insults directed toward himself, but watching his daughter suffer broke him inside. Lily asked one evening why people suddenly looked angry whenever they saw them. Marcus smiled through tears and simply said that sometimes people believed stories before they knew the truth. Bills piled up. Rent became overdue. His savings disappeared within weeks. Job applications produced no interviews because the investigation remained active, and rumors spread faster than facts. Every night Marcus questioned whether kindness had destroyed everything he loved. Meanwhile, Victoria struggled with haunting uncertainty. The more she replayed fragments of that night, the less her assumptions made sense. She remembered Marcus taking away her car keys instead of taking advantage of her condition. She vaguely recalled hearing a little girl laughing somewhere inside the apartment. She remembered an older woman's comforting voice offering water. Nothing matched the frightening story her anxious mind had invented. Still searching for answers, Victoria visited the apartment building without telling anyone. Mrs. Jenkins answered the door. The elderly woman calmly described every detail of that night. She explained how Marcus had never entered the living room alone after helping Victoria onto the couch. She described staying with her until Marcus and Lily went into the bedroom. She explained that Marcus had repeatedly worried about protecting Victoria's dignity and reputation. Mrs. Jenkins then showed Victoria the building's hallway security camera footage. The recording changed everything. It clearly showed Marcus supporting Victoria respectfully while keeping an appropriate distance whenever possible. It showed Mrs. Jenkins arriving minutes later. It showed Marcus carrying blankets, pillows, and water before disappearing into the bedroom with Lily for the rest of the night. Victoria felt physically sick. An innocent man had lost everything because she allowed fear to become accusation. She immediately rushed back to the office and demanded every member of senior leadership gather for an emergency meeting. The investigation uncovered additional evidence. Phone records confirmed Marcus had attempted multiple rideshare services. Building surveillance matched Mrs. Jenkins' timeline perfectly. Lily's school attendance confirmed Marcus left early the following morning exactly as described. Every accusation collapsed. Marcus was completely innocent. But innocence alone could not repair the damage. Victoria personally drove to Marcus's apartment. She expected anger. Instead she found Marcus repairing Lily's old bicycle with quiet determination. The apartment looked nearly empty because several pieces of furniture had already been sold to pay overdue bills. Marcus listened silently while Victoria apologized. She admitted she had failed him not only as a boss but as a human being. Her assumptions had nearly destroyed a father who had risked his own reputation simply to save another person's life. Marcus accepted her apology, but forgiveness did not erase lost income, broken trust, or Lily's tears. Victoria understood that. The following week she held a company-wide meeting unlike anything employees had ever witnessed. Standing before hundreds of workers, she publicly accepted full responsibility. She announced that Marcus had been completely cleared, apologized without excuses, and explained how dangerous assumptions could become when people rushed to judgment. Then she did something even more unexpected. She reinstated Marcus with full back pay, promoted him to Director of Operations, and introduced new company policies requiring fair investigations before disciplinary action. Mandatory training focused on unconscious bias, respectful workplace procedures, and protecting both victims and the falsely accused. Marcus never asked for revenge. He only wanted the truth. As months passed, the office slowly transformed. Employees who once doubted Marcus began respecting him even more deeply. His leadership style remained humble. He encouraged teamwork, treated everyone equally, and quietly helped struggling co-workers without expecting recognition. Victoria changed too. She started leaving work earlier, spent more time listening than speaking, and established scholarship programs for single parents pursuing education and career advancement. She privately admitted that Marcus had taught her the greatest leadership lesson of her life. One spring afternoon, Lily performed her first piano recital. The small auditorium overflowed with families. Among those sitting proudly in the audience was Victoria. When Lily finished playing, the applause seemed endless. Marcus looked around the room and realized something remarkable. Months earlier he had believed his life was ruined forever. Now he understood that truth, though painfully slow, had finally caught up with lies. The scars remained, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they reminded him that character is revealed not when life is easy, but when every reason to become bitter stands directly in front of you and you still choose compassion. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate courage, forgiveness, and the extraordinary power of kindness. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and answer this question: do you believe one act of kindness is always worth the risk, even when it isn't appreciated at first? Years later, Marcus often reflected on the darkest season of his life. He no longer remembered it as the time everything nearly ended. Instead, he remembered it as the season that revealed who people truly were. Some chose rumors. Others chose truth. Some judged without evidence. Others stood beside him when standing with him wasn't popular. Through it all, one lesson became impossible to ignore. Kindness does not guarantee an easy life. Sometimes it brings misunderstanding, sacrifice, and heartbreak. But kindness also has a strange way of surviving every storm. It plants seeds in places we cannot see, changes hearts we thought were impossible to reach, and reminds the world that integrity is measured not by what people accuse us of, but by who we continue to be after the accusations fade away. Marcus walked home that evening holding Lily's small hand, grateful not because life had become perfect, but because together they had discovered that truth may travel slowly, yet when it finally arrives, it carries a light powerful enough to overcome even the darkest night.